Hi everybody, my name is Alan. On behalf of the crew, I'd like to welcome you to another edition of Bridging Heaven and Earth. This is the first live show we've shot in like two and a half months, and you know, a lot goes on in the world, a lot happens in each of our daily lives. And yet, when we were booking this season, you know, we film a season and we finished a couple of 2-3 months ago, and then we were booking the next season on our hiatus. And then we go another 26 weeks with 13 shows. And when we were booking the guests, I mean, what we kept seeing is that when people would ask us what the show's about and how they would fit in, basically we said over and over again that this show is just about putting out a vibration of love. And to let that love just vibrate and move and grow and perpetuate itself through each and every city, each and every one of you out there who's helped us get on a new city. We're now on in 40 cities, and basically it's just that vibration of love. And the interesting part is, you know, there are a lot of people, even theoretically in the spiritual path in the New Age community, whose words seem to speak to that vibration of love, to speak to that energy of collaboration, that energy of connectedness, and yet their actions don't really speak of that. And what happens is, it generally works out that something happens that they end up not coming on Bridging Heaven and Earth. What we do is, this show is inclusive, and anybody who could come on with a humbleness and an openness and the desire to put out that vibration of love. I mean, this is the 118th show we've done, and you know, we've had singers and dancers and channels and Hindis and Christians and Jews and every religion and race and color and nationality and age. But it's really behind that is just that vibration of love. And this is what this season is. We have a lineup of guests for this season that are truly extraordinary in sharing their gifts. And behind their gifts is that desire to know love, to feel love, and to share love. And tonight we have with us people who, again, have dedicated their lives for almost as long as I can remember to that experience, to that push into consciousness, that push into love. Because ultimately consciousness, when it really comes into its fullness, into its blossom, it's about love. It's about us working together. It's about us living on this incredible planet, in collaboration, in love, in consciousness. We have with us Barbara Marx Hubbard, who's a world-renowned futurist. She's a citizen diplomat. She's a visionary. She's been on the show before. It's one of the favorite shows when we send them out around the country. We're honored to have her on the Bridging Heaven and Earth Foundation Board of Advisors. She's the author of 5 books, including The Evolutionary Journey, Conscious Evolution, and she's got a new book that's coming out. Either it just came out or it's coming out shortly, Emergence, the Shift from Ego to Essence. And she's the founder of the Foundation for Conscious Evolution. She has a radio show. I mean, just enormous gifts and gifting of that experience that she's been gifted with, and her life is dedicated to sharing that with as many people who are open to it. And we have another old friend of Bridging Heaven and Earth, Sarah West, who's an angelic transmitter. She's a visionary, she's a mystic poet, and she has 2 new CDs out that she's going to grace us with songs from them. She has a new CD out called Sanctuary and another one called Voices of Eternity, and she's going to sing a song from each of those incredible CDs. So again, we're just honored to be here. We're honored to be with you. We want to thank you for all the calls and letters and emails and all the attempts to get us on. Just in the last couple of months, we've gotten on in Chicago and St. Paul, Minnesota, Fairfield, Iowa. People are working on us in Switzerland and all over Europe now, and we're just so delighted to have all your energy and all your collaborative efforts to come with us to spread that vibration of love. So as we normally do at this time, please join me in a short meditation, and then we'll start with a song from Sarah, and then Barbara will be with us. And it's an opportunity for us all to go deeper into that experience, to know that love more. And then tomorrow we can't help but share it more and experience it more. So please join me. If you don't know a meditation, just relax. Just let the day go, and there's an hour here for you to experience a tremendous growth opportunity. So please. Thank you. So we're going to begin tonight's show with a set from Sarah West. She's going to sing Heaven on Earth. She's written it, and it's going to be performed by Sarah. And this is from her new CD called Sanctuary, and it's magnificent. So just remember, it's an opportunity for us here to come into that love, to experience that love, and share it. And ultimately, that's what we're here to do. We're here to know that love and share it. So whenever we're ready, Sarah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, thank you, Sarah. That was fantastic. So we're on the set with Barbara. Welcome, Barbara.
Thank
So why don't you tell us a little about your new book, Emergence, and how do we go from ego to essence? And what does that exactly mean?
I was thinking that the book really is about bridging heaven and earth.
Right.
And what Emergence is about is that every one of us has a divine self. I call it the essential self that comes direct from source. And when we put our identity in that self comes all the way in. And all the local selves, the separated selves, are attracted up into that essence. And heaven on earth happens within each of us. And the book is about how do I go from a driven local personality self into a shift of identity to that self that is in you and me. And when I am my essential self, I can see that in you. And that love you speak about is natural at the level of essence.
We're all the same love.
But it's not natural at the level of ego.
Then there's competition.
You can't love the other as self if you're talking about your own ego trying to love someone else's. So the inner work to bridge heaven and earth for each of us is to actually invite the divine self to incarnate the whole way.
And you have like tools and techniques to do that. There are like 10 steps. Why don't you kind of go through those
Well,
a little
the
bit?
first step is there are two really simple steps to begin with. The first step is, do you feel driven? Anyone feel tense, oppressed, overly anxious? You say to yourself, that's a sign that there's something in me that wants to change. And you say, good.
That's a big club.
It's a big club.
Very big club.
And in my case, I was very compulsive with my work. I loved my work. So I was driven. I had no inner peace. I was behind at 6 a.m. in the morning. So
you started off behind.
I started off behind.
Right.
I could never catch up.
Right.
And everything I did, there was 10 more things to do.
Right.
And I realized this was an addiction. So any of your listeners who absolutely feels any kind of drivenness, you say, good. I am going to make a choice not to be like this anymore. And the second thing is take a daily Sabbath. That's Peter Russell's name for it. Get up early and I gave myself from 6 to 9 a.m. as much time as you can. And here's the simple meditation. Instead of meditating on a mantra or on a breath or on Christ, meditate on your own experience of that guidance, inner voice, intuitive wisdom that has guided you in your life. Put your attention on the flashes of insight. Those flashes come from essence. And when whatever you put your attention on grows. So I sat in my inner sanctuary quietly, and I remembered my guidance. Like, Barbara, go tell the story of the birth of humanity. Barbara, go do this. Where was that coming from? It wasn't an extraterrestrial. Mm-hmm. It was my own deeper knowing. And as I put my attention on it, what happened is that this presence started to come into my heart, and I felt inner love because I love this being that I am. And then it went into my solar plexus vibrationally, and the tense selves began to relax. And then before you knew it, I experienced, I said, why don't I invite this self to take dominion? Why would I have only an occasional flash of inspiration and then run out to do it? Why don't I stop and ask this presence to enter the whole way, because it is me.
And it feels better. It's the
pleasure principle. And pretty soon, my local selves, they didn't want to be miserable, anxious, and separate. And they began to sort of love my essence, or me. And they'd sit, and they wouldn't want to try anything separate anymore. And gradually, what seemed to happen is they came into essence. I thought of it in the heart, like a rose chamber in the heart. And they would come in, they'd relax, they'd disappear as a separated self, and they'd come back out into the world as an expression of essence.
Well, that's the way, it's almost like that's the way you're vibrating now. You're vibrating that vibration of essence, that vibration of love, so it's obviously going to manifest.
And then it manifests because what happens when the inner integration occurs, there is an acausal effect on your outer life. And my entire life changed in the last 2 years. I used to live in Marin. I didn't know how to make my work and all that. Finally, I came.
You mean you know how to make your work play? I mean, I always talk about play.
Oh, I didn't know how to make my work play, and I didn't know. I have a very big vision, and I didn't know how to give it form. And I really thought I was finished. I'm 71 years old. You'd think, well, maybe I should
You know, you look younger than the first time you were on the show. So,
I am.
Say, which was about 2 or 3 years ago,
You know what? I'm getting newer.
I know, yeah, you're born again. No, I know exactly
Again
what
and
you mean.
again,
Yeah,
day
absolutely.
after day.
Right, I know.
But when I came to Santa Barbara, I found a group of people that wanted to work together on what does it mean to evolve consciously.
Yeah, that's the foundation for conscious evolution. Why don't you just talk about that a little? We'll get back to the book.
When I was just about 2.5 years ago, I made a speech at Mind Supermind here, and I asked the question after my speech, what would happen if this community, or any community, were to experience its own potential for conscious evolution, self and social? And we have
inner and outer.
Inner and outer. We have a lot of workshops. We have people who have studied all kinds of teachings, but we've never invited all of us to come together and create the culture that we choose, because we have dysfunctional world out there: educational systems, political systems, economic systems, environment. So,
and really, it's because we're coming from ego when we set them up. So I mean, it can't be otherwise.
So 150 people decided to work together for a couple of years. This is not a workshop. It's actually building a world.
Wow.
And you build it community by community. And so I was so reaffirmed.
And the way the story was, as I understand it, when you said if any people are interested, like the whole audience.
They raised their hand.
And they're still, most of them are still involved.
They
as
are.
I know a lot of them.
And now we have a big internet program called Gateway to Our Conscious Evolution. And we're testing it now, and we'll finally have thousands of people worldwide forming community right where they are, and then understanding that the human species is at a crossroads. We have the power to destroy and create, and so our choice is to co-create with the deeper pattern of nature, or what we used to call God.
And you also have a radio show, The Peace Room. Why don't you talk about that?
I have a radio show called Live from the Peace Room on Wisdom Radio, every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Pacific time. And Live from the Peace Room is an idea. The Peace Room is comparable to a war room. And instead of tracking enemies and how to kill people, it tracks success, breakthrough, and innovation, and how to support it. So we sit in our Santa Barbara studio, live from the Peace Room. I visualize it as a hub at the center of the world. And around this hub are all the people whose work and life is leading to greater love, greater creativity, greater possibilities. And I call them up and interview them week after week after week, and they get on these wonderful tapes. I mean, I really am filled up, probably like you are, Alan, from doing this show.
Yeah, it's beautiful, isn't it?
And when you actually start piecing together the stories of people whose life and work is already changing the world, what you see is there is a new world born in our midst.
Absolutely, yeah.
And because usually media doesn't pick it up, the average person would think the world is really dying.
Right. Well, there is like some duality happening.
And some of the world, you know, the caterpillar butterfly image is very good.
Right.
There's a caterpillar here, and in the caterpillar there are what we call imaginal cells. And that's really the way it works. These cells hold a little image, like you do and I do. And finally, more and more of them come online, and finally they resonate, and the caterpillar gives up.
Right. The momentum changes.
The momentum changes, the caterpillar surrenders, and the imaginal cells actually transubstantiate the body of the caterpillar into this incredible butterfly. But the beauty of it is the purpose of the caterpillar is the butterfly.
Right.
And I really believe that the purpose of human society is a co-creative, co-evolutionary world.
And you talk about a new human in a way in the book. You know?
Yes, yes. You know, 35,000 years ago, approximately, there emerged self-reflective self-consciousness. They called it the Cro-Magnon man, separated out from Neanderthal and other types. And for 35,000 years, we've had basic self-consciousness. Starting about 5,000 years ago, people started to pop into cosmic consciousness. And that could be like Buddha or Jesus or Moses or Krishna. But almost nobody else could do it. So they got priests, they got dogmas, they got religions to hold the teachings.
Right. The attempt to hold the teachings.
Attempt. But because the followers didn't have the consciousness,
they didn't have the experience.
They couldn't do it.
Couldn't do it.
However, this is my observation, that evolution raises consciousness from single cell to animal to human to Buddha and Christ. We are the generation born when a greater complexity is happening on Earth. More and more of us are emerging with a expanded consciousness.
People talk about DNAs, and are you familiar with that at all?
I am. I think this expanded consciousness is a holistic, connected, empathetic, deeper, whole system, comprehensive compassion, and spiritually attuned to inner guidance. Not looking for external deity, not looking for God the Father, but looking for the incarnation of the divine in you and me. Now, how many millions of us are like that? My thesis is that that is an emerging humanity, and that Homo sapiens sapiens, as a self-centered, self-conscious type, really began to decline with the atomic bomb. Because if we continue with all this power in self-centered consciousness, you can see we can destroy our life support systems. And I think evolution itself is calling forth the people who can love one another, the people who have the compassion, and that emerging species will move beyond self-consciousness into what we might call whole system, cosmic consciousness, spirit-centered consciousness, and that we are legions, we're not a new religion, we're an emerging person, and the closer we find each other, the more we get affirmed. And that's the hope of the world. Because self-centered consciousness cannot solve these problems.
No, because it only feeds it.
It only feeds it.
It feeds separation, it feeds division.
And we can see that collective egoic consciousness is truly deadly. It holds the bombs. It can totally rape the earth. It can misuse nanotechnology and biotechnology. We're too powerful to be self-centered.
Yeah, I know. But you have to have developed at least some perspective on it to see that.
Right.
And that's what's happening now. And that's what's happening. What is it, from 2 DNA connecting to now they say all 12 are connecting? Or?
I've heard that, and I really don't know that.
Yeah, I'm not sure of that either, but they say that, and people have been tested, that, that their DNAs are reattaching.
And they say the indigo children are born with different, slightly different DNA.
Capabilities.
And I wouldn't be surprised if there are mutants who have a slightly different genetic pattern, who are attracted to the ideas of love, compassion, evolution, and all of that, and that perhaps we are an emerging kind. Why not? Why would it stop with a self-centered furry biped?
Right. No, absolutely.
Why would 15 billion years stop here?
It's interesting because you're in an interesting position, and so are we. Like 30 weeks a year, people come in from all over the world who are just in that vibration, and you talk to people every week who are filled with it all over the world, and literally all over the world.
They're very intelligent, they're very mature, they're economists, they are social scientists, they are artists, and the 60s was like a burst of consciousness, but there was no wineskins for the new wine. And it kind of just poured out, and we got conservative and regressive, I think. Mm-hmm. And now, those who've been working for 20, 30 years are more mature, and I think there's going to be an uprising of wellness, an uprising of social, I call it the social potential movement in my book, Conscious Evolution. And in my book, Emergence is really the first personal book I've ever written as to how one of these emerging types, I call it a universal human. If anybody feels that they're an emerging type, their consciousness is expanding, Emergence will give you the steps to identify that deeper essence, to bring it in, to incarnate as that, and then to move into finding your vocation, your deeper life purpose, joining up with others, and eventually building a world.
Right. What your book is about, and what we talk about all the time, is to go from the feeling of separation to the feeling of connectedness, the feeling of division to the feeling of, wholeness, oneness.
Yes, and I think there's a shift of your sense of identity from a creature human seeking higher guidance, feelings of a victim of the world that you live in, to a being who feels that I am the guidance I've been receiving, and I am a creator of that world, and as I believe it, as I think it, so I can create it. And the sense of empowerment that's coming into this type of human is absolutely essential for the evolution of our world.
it's a necessary step for us to change the momentum.
It is.
And then, you know what, interesting what happens is the vibration goes out, your book comes out, the show and all that, and then all of a sudden the Berlin Wall is down.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? Things happen in random ways, and there's
right.
no linear, because it's vibrational.
It's vibrational and it's mounting, and you know the whole theory of morphogenetic fields. And as each person does something, they contribute to a non-physical field. And eventually, more and more of us, it's easier to think this way.
The 100th monkey.
Exactly,
Yeah.
and I really believe that.
Yeah, I see. I mean, I see it happening all the time. This is the beginning of our 10th season. We started, 6 or 7 years ago to do the show, and just the change that's happened in that period of time is enormous.
It is.
I mean, just the difference in you.
Really?
Really?
Do you see a
really.
difference?
Absolutely.
That's
A lightness and just you're lighter. Your eyes are much shinier.
You know, I'm deeply.
Do you feel that?
I'm
Don't
deeply
you?
happy.
Yeah, right.
I've never been happy before.
And it's really obvious.
And I'm
really.
happy because I know that I am that which I've been seeking.
No, I understand.
And
you're manifest, and there's no difference between inner and outer.
That's
it's like
right.
when we used to call it work, and it had a certain connotation. I always call it play work.
Yes.
It's doing this show. 95% of the time it's fun. There are a few moments dealing with general things around.
But I see it in your face too,
yeah,
Alan.
Exactly.
You're alive.
Yeah, exactly. Because you're doing things that are fun and are in line with your inner growth. And it's beautiful.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, well, in that same note, let's go to second Sarah set, and then we'll come back to Barbara. The second Sarah set is Amazing Grace. And this is Sarah's own rendition of, obviously, the classic Amazing Grace. And it's from her CD, Voices of Eternity. And if you want any information at any time about, Barbara's Center for Conscious Evolution, where her books are available, I think they're available everywhere.
They're out now.
They're out now, all over. Just call me, Alan. They both, Sarah and Barbara, have websites that you can go to and check everything out. Just call me or go to the Bridging Heaven and Earth website. We have links to both of their sites. And it's 805-687-2053. So Sarah's going to do Amazing Grace now.
More than 12,000 groups to fulfill her birth as a star. We speak to you of heaven on earth. It's within all of you. Just love. Don't hesitate. Your spirit call. Wake up. The time is now. Wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up. The time is
Hi, we're back on the set. That was from, it's getting a little hot in here. We're back on the set. That was Sarah from Voices of Eternity, her new CD. So we're back with Barbara. So if people want to set up, I mean, this show is probably going to be shown over the next 4 or 5 months in, 40 cities. If they want to set up conscious cities, conscious evolutionary processes, how would they go about doing that?
Well, we finally have a way. And we have it starts out on the internet. It's called Gateway to Our Conscious Evolution. And we have a website. And a person anywhere in the world can just enter that on the internet. It's consciousevolution.net. They can register and they enter a process together where they start understanding the views of the nature of the universe, of the new story, and then it gets to the new person. And people put their subjective experiences in, and they read each other's experiences. We have just been field testing this.
This is like chicken soup for the evolutionary soul.
I tell you, people who are on internet, I didn't even want to do it this way.
No, I think it's great.
They feel a vibrational field, so that you're sitting there at your computer, but there are people in Canada and Israel and Russia doing it too.
It's amazing, isn't it?
And then you immediately read their responses, and then you start interacting. So the first step is get on the gateway. And then the second step, form communities right where you are. Small groups, and then in one of the great portals, we say, how can you form a community? Like the Santa Barbara community are all people who live here, all who have begun to do work on themselves for many years. And we have formed a community that supports one another in being who we truly are. So,
and how do you do that?
And the way we did it is, first of all, you have to see there's a new story, that the human race is evolving, number one. Number two, you have to say, I want to evolve. And I want to evolve with my friends and my peers and my children and my family. And then number three is you just call a meeting. And you invite people to form core groups in the areas of their interest, like health, education, government. And in those core groups, they practice actually resonance, which is coming from the heart, speaking at that deeper level. And gradually, they form a whole system.
And all this information is on the gateway?
It's all on the gateway, and we invite people all over the world now to enter the gateway, to form communities right where they live, and then to gather together from time to time in Santa Barbara.
Oh, where they can do workshops with all the people
Exactly.
who are doing it for.
And we're also going to have vocational dating. So let's say you're somebody in Arkansas and you want to become a holistic nurse, and you're not sure where that is or who that is. In the gateway, you're going to find partners, teammates, projects. So after you go through the personal and the relational, you go into vocation, and then we help people find partners. And we hope to work with larger institutions like the Institute of Noetic Sciences, Association for Global New Thought, the Buckminster Fuller Institute, and make alliances with like-minded organizations.
Just get the ripples going out and out and
So
out.
if you are a person and you're looking for your life purpose and you need your teammates, it won't be just picking out from a couple of hundred people, but thousands and thousands of people who are already.
And the internet actually is a tool for that. There's no time, there's no space, and it's infinite in a way.
You know, I have begun to feel by doing the internet course myself, is that my nervous system is expanding.
Wow.
I feel an expanded consciousness. I feel I'm connected at a deep level with people that I've never met, but I read all the things that they're saying, and then I write back, and before you know it, we're a living, breathing field of consciousness.
Right. And there's no limit to it.
There's no limit to it, and we want to have it multicultural. I'm going over to the synthesis dialogues with the Dalai Lama, and we will be meeting world transformational leaders from different countries. And I'm going to invite them to take the gateway and then tell us how to make it, have the cultural imprint of Africa, of Asia, of other cultures. So, but we are telling the one story, which is this big story of creation.
Of love, of connectedness.
And the
of
15 billion year story, with the human species now gaining the power to participate consciously in evolution.
Large numbers, everyone.
Eventually.
Eventually,
it's interesting because 35,000 years ago, who could have guessed what the human species would do? So let's take us, not even 35,000 years from now, take us 1,000 years from now.
Well, actually, the theory was, or the story was, that Jesus said, you can have the experience I am having.
And greater works.
And greater, right.
Well, if you just imagine that we don't self-destruct, that we don't blow ourselves up or destroy our life support systems, even 100 years from now, the cultural, technological environment will be so radically powerful. We may have life extension. We'll probably be living in the solar system. We may have access to 0-point energy, which means really, literally infinite free energy. We will be doing computing
over the oil company's dead body, however.
Well, it may just have to be.
I understand.
But the point is that none of our problems can be solved by the oil companies.
Much to their chagrin, they try to convince us that if we just
they could solve them,
we could just turn the electricity down a little, everything.
Every problem that we're facing has a solution at the next level of evolution, but it doesn't have a solution at the level of consciousness we're at. So either the human species is going to be so stupid as to self-destruct, or there'll be enough of us to take dominion to self-evolve. That's the drama. This is a cosmic drama.
The talk is that we're cutting off the branch we're sitting on, but hopefully not.
We'll
no,
see.
we have to recognize that.
But you know why I have hope, Alan? How did we get from subatomic particles 15 billion years ago to you and me sitting here?
No, I mean, I have a
How
tremendous...
did nature do that?
Well, more so. I mean, you see it every week. I mean, I just see it, just from your books and just... I mean, we're in a funny position because you probably get the same thing, but because we do this show and there isn't another show like it in terms of getting a certain message out.
Right.
That we get books and tapes, I mean, 25, 30, 50 a week that are extraordinary.
Yes.
And these people, nobody's heard of them.
Nobody heard of anybody
Nobody's
like this.
Yeah,
No.
It's unbelievable. And these people are fantastic.
You know, it's interesting. I was speaking in Seattle about my book a couple of weeks ago, and there was this big audience there. And I said, how come there's so many of us, but we never show up? Where are we in politics? Where are we in the mass media? Where are we at the head of corporations, the head of nation states, the head of nowhere? Now this
Well,
is,
at this point, to get to those positions, it's almost like you got to do stuff you don't want to
well,
do. It's
you
like a
have
club
to
you don't want to
have
enjoy.
the consciousness of control and
Yeah, right.
dominance.
Exactly.
So the real drama to me, and I don't think anyone has an answer to this, is how these millions of pioneering souls, I call us, who have that quality of connectedness and spiritual motivation, finally connect sufficiently to help the system flip into a higher order of self-organization. And I believe that we're at the threshold of
I agree
mass
with you.
resonance. And that for, maybe 2,000, 2,500 years this has been percolating. But the crisis has a timing, because we can't go on hundreds of years polluting and overpopulating. So this means, if we're going to not degenerate here, that there are some processes in nature which would allow us to take a quantum shift. And I think one of them is mass resonance of consciousness. Another is the internet, to connect up, not just connect individuals, but organizations, until we can see the coherence of the emerging world.
Yeah, feel connected, not feel isolated. Your little group here, your little TV show, your little radio show, but we're all connected.
And the idea of the Peace Room, which is will be on our website called Center for Conscious Evolution, is that we want to create a matrix of the whole and have everything that we can find that's emerging and creative sort of organized according to function and geography, so that you can see the anatomy of the world. This is not just a list of projects. This is like every project is part of a living system.
Right, and each one could serve, they all are interconnected. And
They
gonna
all
serve each other.
interconnected because they're all part of one living body.
Right, exactly.
And that we haven't seen the coherence. And there's this beautiful phrase in chaos theory that a small island of coherence in a sea of chaos can change the world.
Absolutely.
So what we're saying is those who are tuning into a higher pattern are forming islands of coherence. And as society becomes more dysfunctional, more and more people will be attracted to life.
It feels better. I mean, it's really very simple. I mean, being in harmony feels better than being dissonant and not.
Alan, the reason I call this the universal human or the co-creator is if we're crossing over from self-conscious, self-centered humans to a more co-creative, whole-centered, spirit-centered humanity, if we can use the power that science and technology are now giving us for the restoration of the earth, the freeing of ourselves from poverty, the exploration of the universe, in 100 years we'll be a universal humanity.
There's nothing wrong with the technology. There's nothing wrong with any of the material possessions. Just our consciousness and how we use them. I mean, they all can serve.
And the thing about the new technologies is they're so radically powerful and destructive. Like nuclear power, we could have a nuclear meltdown. But things like nanotechnology, which is building atom by atom like nature does, the people who believe in it say that we can build anything, we can repair our cells, we can go to the moon and grow habitats. Well, these are the powers of gods. And Jesus said, "Ye are gods." Well, what if this is true? And the new powers that the mind has given us right now are separated from our soul, you might say. But
Well, it looks like it.
if the new powers in science and technology were to be connected with love of one another as oneself, then you see a new species. You really do.
Absolutely.
You see a universal
The
humanity.
manifestation would be completely different.
And I think that, basically we'll find that we're giving birth to a universal humanity, that Earth is giving birth. We're in the pain of birth right now. It's dangerous but natural. And if we get through this, our children's children will have an infinite future.
Yeah, I see that happening too. I mean, it's really an extraordinary thing. And actually, I think the way it works is like we're like loosening all the bolts of the system.
Yes.
And then there's a string, and it doesn't look like anything's happening, but we pull one string and then the whole house comes down.
Yes.
It's like one of those big things in Las Vegas where they put 5, little
Yes.
dynamite pieces and the whole building comes down.
The image I use is birth, and to say that what we're suffering today is a crisis of birth. And the analogy is interesting because the baby in the womb is doing just fine. And
Right, it's that transition.
And then in the,
Right.
there's a space scientist who told the story of there was a little fetal scientist in the body of a 7-month-old fetus in the womb. And this scientist predicts that by the 8th month there'll be crowding. And by the 9th month there'll be some pollution. By the 10th month there'll be triage, people will be dying. And the 11th month, says this scientist in the womb, the baby will be dead. But the scientist didn't know about birth.
Right.
You see, so here we are. If we keep going like we're going, one more doubling of the population is 12 billion people.
Mm-hmm.
And the global warming,
And we can't support it.
President
the way
Bush
it is
has
now.
finally noticed
Right.
there is global warming.
Not
Well,
quite, but
well,
there was enough pressure put on it to at least make some
So-
sort of comments about it.
The thing about this is these are not just myths. These are physical realities. And the evolutionary drivers are coming in here so that even those who don't want to look at this can see it. And so either we will just die or we will evolve. And I believe the evolutionary driver is awakening the human species.
I think it's clear. You know, I mean, just in the positions we're in, I mean, we see it all the time.
And you know, even we don't know what the outcome of any of this is, but the beauty for us as individual humans and small groups and communities and families is that by believing this and acting as though it were so, our lives are the change.
And they're full of love and they're full of light and
So-
they're full of joy.
It's not that
Right.
you're sitting here saying, I'm going to make that future great. But what you are is you're incorporating the divine intent in your life. So you represent an expression of the changed world here and now. You are the changed world. I am that world. And then that's how the world really changes.
Yeah, one person at a time, and then
Yeah.
one group, and it's interesting. I mean, we've talked a lot of it about, you know, you have a good moment, and then you have a good hour, and then you have a good day, and then
Yeah.
you have, you know, a good week, and then you have a good life.
Yes.
And that's really what we want, is to have our essence and what we call ego become one, because that's the illusion here, is that there's all this separation. But there's only one energy. We call it God, we call it whatever.
This is true.
And people have had that experience, and it's, you know, just to go through that birth process into that recognition.
And so going back to my book, Emergence, my new
Right.
book, the shift from ego to essence, if you're one of those people who is emerging and you're feeling this drivenness and you're also feeling this higher consciousness, it'll take you step by step as to how to incarnate as that consciousness, how to educate your local selves, and then how to emerge. I call myself in the phase of youth. I'm 71, but I'm really young, and everyone is. As to how do you come into form in the world as your own essential self? See, you're in form in the world because this show reflects you deeply. It's your true essential expression. You would be a youth in the terms of a young universal human. I am just now...
People just generally say I'm a baby.
I'm just now a very young universal human because it's nice, isn't it?
Yeah.
I just recently found out how to come into form. Because, you know, like a young person, adolescent, has to go to school and finally they're going to do something in the world. They're not just mystical. All right, so you come into form when you're a youth and you have a continuity of consciousness. You don't forget who you are.
Right. The momentum is on your side
So
at
you
that
keep
point.
remembering.
Right.
And then another thing is you start to shift from the desire for massive procreation to the desire for co-creation. And you get excited, you get vocationally aroused, like you and I are, to express the divine creativity. And in everyone's creativity is a seed of the new world. So our goal, socially speaking, should be to create cultures in which each person is free to give their gift.
Is empowered.
For the self and the good of the whole. And we're working in the Santa Barbara community with how would you structure a community to support each individual in being more of who they truly are.
And what have you come up with so far?
Well, we're using some of Dee Hock, who founded the Visa International, and he's written a book called Birth of the Chaotic Age, for Chaos and Order. And he has a whole design process as to how a community or an organization can self-organize and get away from command and control. So we're working with that. We're working with a brilliant book called Guided Evolution of Society by Bela Banathy, an 82-year-old Hungarian,
Wow.
who is the father of conscious evolution. And I told him, I've never met him, but I said, I finally found the father, and I'm one of the mothers of conscious evolution.
You better not go to Utah then, because we have a little polygamy going on. One
So,
father and all these mothers.
I'm going to meet Bella very shortly.
Okay.
And he's a brilliant.
Really, must be.
Really, he's written a textbook, and he tells how you go into a design space. So here's current reality, here's your vision. How do you move from current reality toward a vision? Design space is a free space in which everyone becomes a designer. And it's free play in there. So in our community, we've created a design space. We have a vision of a community which supports each person in being who they truly are to give their gift into the whole. And the challenge is to co-create the design. And he believes, and I agree, that democracy now requires much more participation than representative democracy. And Bella says that the 5th century Greek polis, the cities, little tiny city-states like Athens, were a very beginning example of direct democracy. And I feel that we are experimenting with an extended and deepened democracy, and that eventually the United States of America will reclaim its heritage, which is the heritage of Novus Ordo Seclorum, a new order of the ages. And I have a deep love of this country. I'm disappointed in the way we're going, but I think that there's going to be an uprising of a greater tradition than we now have.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people talk about the United States actually at some point was formed, and that was the intent, is, you know, in the Declaration of Independence. I mean, the intention was that awakening of consciousness, and then, you know, the human condition somehow comes in.
That's right. It was like Christianity. It's never really been tried. It's a democracy, the vision is right, but it's like some of the great religions. The consciousness and the structures didn't fully allow it, but it was a great step. And I think that, I call it synergistic democracy or synocracy, which is the form of democracy which really supports every individual, not in just getting their self-interest, but getting their self-interest within the larger whole.
I think that people are going to have an increased experience, because what happens and why Christianity is just everybody that wasn't having the experience Christ was having. So
That's
you get
right.
rules and traditions, and the external form of a, you know, it's like sitting in meditation, you're thinking of, you know,
Well, and
something
they
else.
actually suppressed the original experiences, and the
Right.
mystics had a lot of trouble within the church.
Right, because it didn't fit in the, you know,
Well,
in a format.
There's no
They-
authority
right,
if you're getting it direct.
Right, exactly.
So-
There's no hierarchy and all that.
And I think we'll find that every great religion has a gift to give to the conscious evolution of humanity, but as you become your own essential self, you can't be labeled. Like, I could not say I'm a Christian, a Muslim, or a Jew.
No, I know exactly what you mean.
I feel that all of those paths are portals, but that once you become your essential self, you're
one. Everything's
what Sidney
yeah.
Lanier calls a sovereign person.
Right. Yeah, you're whole.
You're
Yeah.
whole. You're not labeled.
Right, and the label is just a defining thing that's limiting to
Yes.
your essence of the infinite, of your essence of...
I think we need it in our childhood stages.
Right, yeah, right.
We need
it's
support
like,
systems.
Right, exactly.
But now, I
I
think
agree.
that so many people are becoming more spiritual and less religious.
I think that's true. So here we go again. I think this show has gone really fast to me. So, well, just, you know, thank you, Barbara. Thank you, Sarah. It's been an incredible experience. Again, thank you all for all your inspiration and all your calls and all your help. If you want anything to do with Barbara or the Center for Conscious Evolution, Sarah, her CDs, 805-687-2053. Thank you. Good night. God bless you.